You know, in Democrat, you sit down at the table and start talking about issues, you have an intelligent, substantive discussion. We ought to figure out how we find word public, because I agree with you.
Right.
We would like that, but I would extend that to grades as well.
Sure, I wouldn't include independent.
Well, I think we all feel the same. Well, I certainly agree. Real challenge is getting other voices given and then the opportunity and presence. And it's very, very difficult to find folks who are interested in assuming responsibility in a thoughtful way. You know, and we've never had any issues with the folks who we've appointed in the past, depending on the party affiliation. And I think it's important for us to, you know, not create barriers. You know, I completely agree with you. Correct?
I would just, while I agree with what George is saying, I do just want us to be very careful about the simple fact of just saying that, you know, we want to have somebody in place. If a person's not going to espouse the values that we hold true here in Montgomery County, I can't see raising my hand to support them. And so that's one of the things also, and it doesn't extend to partisan values. It extends to the values of everybody being, you know, voices being valuable, making sure that when it comes to what we saw that happened with our board of elections, that those kinds of things don't happen where decisions are made purely on a partisan basis, right, rather than on the basis of what's in the best interest of all of our constituents. That was a clear, in my eyes, sort of violation of what their responsibility was to really make sure. And so it's from that perspective that we really want to make sure that we're doing what we need to in supporting that. So
It doesn't put Democrats gerrymandering the state.
that's exactly right. Which is where we stood. Yeah. And said that we disagreed with as well as a council. So I mean, you know, it goes on both sides. It goes on both sides, and it really means us trying to make sure that we have people who are really looking for the best interests of all of our folks, and not just for a few.
Well, we've been pretty lucky over the years. It has not been that wildly pure political agenda here in Montgomery County. I mean, for all of us, or whoever, it's, you know, legitimate debate about stuff, but it has really never been partisan. We'll just see if we can keep it that way. It's changed a little bit. There are more personal threats, that sort of thing. There's a certain element of unpleasantness that occurs, but that's always been the case a little bit, and we'll see if that continues. Nancy?
I mean, I like the general spirit of the conversation. I just don't know that we would be able to necessarily be responsible in finding or changing or encouraging sane Republicans. I mean, it seems to me that, you know, the Republican Party is responsible for ensuring whatever opportunities are out there that they take advantage of. I mean, it happens to be more freedom with it and extreme in their ways, and that's unfortunate. But, you know, I mean, as long as we're not making public comments that seem to undermine and or discourage participation, I just don't see how we can somehow go out there and do some sort of Republican finding type of strategy. I mean, it is what it is, and we know very well what opportunities exist.
Well, they're party people, and then they're just, you know, community people, and we've never had any trouble finding people from the community who care. And, you know, we don't check party affiliation when they register to testify or come in and talk to us. I never have asked anybody that. Sometimes but it isn't. So,
but I mean, I'm referring to specifically the boards and commissions, et cetera. I mean, I think that, you know, the fact that we do our due
that's
diligence.
the only time we have to ask.
With advertising it, et cetera. You know, but it has been, I think, difficult generally because, you know, the folks are interested and happen to be, you know, to your point, there happen to be people that are interested in moving an agenda along, so just aren't.
I think we should be realistic about what's happening in the Republican Party nationally. They're at war with themselves.
Yes.
We're seeing that play out very dramatically in the presidential election. We're not going to be able to control that, and we're not going to be able to, really have any effect on that, you know, whether we have set aside seats or not. I think we'll folks who have been party activists locally and feel like, you know, the Tea Party is the future of their party, and that's how, you know, and then aligning with those values is how you get ahead of the party, are not probably people who are gonna be seeking, for these seats. And I think in the future, you know, again, we can't really control it, but I think we'll see, hopefully, I think more, I would imagine, we will want to see more independents applying for these, and I think we could do a better job of getting the word out about these seats when they become available. It ends up, there are, I think, I see more advertisements from the county communication channels about the volunteer advisory commissions and things like that, there are dozens of, than I do these very high profile things, and there might be a reason for that, but I think if people knew those seats were becoming available, we'd see, when we actually did some outreach, we'd see more independents and other moderate Republicans, you know, applying for that.
Well, certainly, replacing Amy is gonna be an interesting effort, and that's a good example of where we need to figure out how we reach out into the community in a big way. That's a really hard job. You know, Amy was part of the Parks Board debate way back when, and really, you know, really learned a lot from that, and she's been a terrific board member. And as you know, this is tough, you know, they're the ones who speak to Archbishop Fire. They're regularly facing a crowd of unhappy people, and they have to make a decision right then. It's not so easy, so it takes a certain amount of fortitude to be able to do that. So we'll try to figure out how we do the outreach on that. So we have to, we did a vacancy announcement that month. Okay. So everyone think about that, and you know, put on Facebook, whatever, you send out a newsletter, do that, remind people of how important it is.
Yeah. And Neil and Delphine and that the whole crew do a really good job now. They will tweet it out, they'll tweet it, they'll get it out. They have multiple things that they're trying now that are way more effective.
We hope, it's so hard these days.
You know what, it would be helpful actually to me, and I imagine to others, maybe Sonia could draft a paragraph or two about what the planning board is, and kind of encompassing this, and explaining the partisan requirement. That,
Sure.
you know, no more than 3 can be held by Democrats, and therefore we're reaching out, you know. Yeah.
Just one other point, do we actually, or does the, is there a notice when people walk into the planning board themselves of vacancies? Because if somebody's there for that purpose, whether or not they have interest in it, and with the information that's necessary. Because I think that at times, it's not that we don't find it outreach right now because there's not a Gazette newspaper and other vehicles for information. We keep going back to social media. There are people who don't necessarily follow social media every day that might be interested in being in some of these positions. So I think if we could have more of a bulletin board where people would actually be there, it might be helpful.
Well, you know, as you know, the challenge of getting information out to the world at large is so tough. And just there are limited number of people who follow this stuff, who get tweets, who check their email even. It's a real challenge. Linda?